Welcome to Edu 360, 2019 version. Our theme this year is education beyond the walls. We are moving from education which has traditionally been within walls to education that will be outside of the walls, because that is the direction of the world. We have to be able to reach people across all channels. Our goal over the next 3 days is to drive the conversation and the collaboration that will catalyze the necessary action to move our education sector forward. What I'd like to do is help set the stage. Let me talk a little bit about where we are as a nation and what the issues and challenges are and what it is that we have to do. So, according to a variety of projections, in particular the UN projections, we're set to go from 200 million people to over 400. 411 people is the estimate by 2015. So in 30 years, we expect to double our population. That's 30 short years. Now, depending on who you ask, the number of Nigerian children of school age being up to 14, let's say, who are out of school is anywhere from 8 million to 13.5 million. Now, I had the opportunity to chat with the Honorable Minister earlier on. The numbers from in his perspective, or the stats that he sees so far, is somewhere in between, right? But whatever the number it is, whether it's 8, whether it's 13.5, the fact is that that number is the highest in the world, right? So the highest number of school children out of school, or school-age children out of school in the world, here. We're doubling our population from 200 to 400 million. So if we continue that trajectory, right? Yes, I accept some of it. We have to make sure that the statistics and data are right, but generally that's what the numbers tell us. So that's what makes the implication of our current demographic realities so stark and dire. You have a large population expected to double over the next 30 years, with a median age around 18 years, and half of that population being children, all of whom we must educate, they must be educated, and they must be skilled if we as a nation are to have any hope of economic prosperity. Now, the experts tell us that there are 3 key issues facing the education sector today. There may be more, but I think if we just spend time on those 3, if we solve for those 3, we will go far and we'll go fast. One is inadequate access. The other is poor quality. So access means you might want to go to school, you may not be able to get to school. There may be no school around you. The other is quality, right? Making sure that we have the right quality of schools and therefore the right quality of education. And that quality is not necessarily just physical. It is physical and it is content. So that's one issue. And the last one, or the other one, is making the sufficient investments. So the investments in education are insufficient. And what we must do is to have a proactive and sustained approach to solving these 3 key problems, so that we can provide an adequate education for today's and the next generation of Nigerian children. Because education is fundamentally about producing a high-quality labor force, which is essential to making our own economy much more competitive, productive, and innovative. Reminder, by 2050, Nigeria will have a labor force of almost 240 million people, and we have to ensure that those people are competitive, productive, and they're innovative. That's the task ahead of us. So having identified some of those key issues, and I don't believe that they've always been issues, right? they have become issues over time. When I look, I did some quick research. I looked at the number of different people speaking today. Pretty much everybody, except one or two of the younger ones, educated here. Every single one. Whether it's Ife, well, called OAU now, so it tells you by generation. So there's OAU, Ibadan, Lagos, you have, whichever it was, right? That's where the majority of the people went to school for tertiary education, primary, secondary, all here, right? So it was not always an issue. The thing is that over time, it has become an issue. So how do we begin to fix what we have seen to be an issue? We do have to invest much, much more significantly in the sector. We have to put much more resources into the sector. It's good to invest in infrastructure, it's good to invest in a lot of things, but if we do not invest in people's education, if people are not educated, then the infrastructure, we will not be able to leverage sufficiently all those additional investments. So my own business, the business of Union Bank, is banking. So we know a little bit about investing. What I do know, based on, given that, is that the business of investing in education is not the job of government alone. It's not possible for the government to do it alone, right? We have to do this together, and the we being the private sector. What UNESCO recommends as a percentage of national budget that should be earmarked for education, given our demographic realities, is 26%. Where are we today? We're at 7%. So 7% of our national budget being invested in education. So it's nowhere near enough. And it's telling, right? So scaling up government spending on public education is imperative. But in order to move the needle and drive impact and drive it really hard, what we have to do, what we believe is key, is creating scope for private investments in the sector. We have to do this thing together, but the environment has to be there to encourage, allow, and enable the private sector to invest side by side with the government. Second, we must reform the way we teach. Teaching and learning has evolved, and it will continue to evolve the same way the world is evolving. So we have to incorporate out-of-the-box methods to achieve specific outcomes. The most basic of these outcomes is cognition. You see, you hear, and hopefully you internalize something, and then you are expected to reproduce all or some of it as an evidence of learning. That's just basic, at the very basic level. The second is knowledge, right? Which is broad-based, multidisciplinary knowledge, including but extending beyond any one person's area of specialty. So yes, it's important to have an area of specialty, but knowledge is when you have, when you know beyond that. The third thing is aptitude. Now that's what recruiters such as ourselves look for. And it's based on a premise. And that premise is that once aptitude is demonstrated, then specific skills can be imbued in that candidate, right? In a way that makes them more effective and efficient at work. So if you have the aptitude, we believe that we can give you the skills necessary. And it's not just we, it's anybody who is employing labor. The fourth is critical thinking. The faculty required to reason, analyze issues, develop informed opinions, and place a high premium on empirical evidence. Finally, skills. And there are two categories of skills. One is the scientific and technical on one hand, which highlights the importance of STEM. So that's your engineering, your technology. But then there's also creative skills and creativity, which we need to harness better, given the rich potential of the digital and creative economy. So yes, on the one hand, you have your science, you have your technology, but you should also have the arts, what you can leverage for creativity. We must leverage technology. Technology and the internet have changed. I talked about the world changing and evolving. Technology and the internet have changed the world, and it will continue to change the world. And more importantly, it's dramatically changing the future of work. The 21st century labor market seeks technologically savvy and creative thinkers, right? We must build technology and ICT-based learning into our curriculum from the ground up. We must leverage technology to solve the problems as well. Solve the problems of access, which means that we don't necessarily have to have physical locations, right? So we have to solve the problems of access whilst also raising the next generation of innovators. So you'll have people who will build, you'll have people who will innovate, you'll have people who will think. So all of us, we have a role to play. Whether it's the government, it's policymakers, it's educators, it's teachers, and the private sector, all of whom are represented in some form or fashion in this room. I'm always proud to say, primary, Nigeria; secondary, Nigeria; high school, A-levels, Nigeria; university, Nigeria. So I know there are many different universities, but for those of you who went to Unilag, Great Akokites, we reign. So when I was in school, right, whether it's primary through university, we had absolutely no lack of confidence relative to anybody in a university anywhere in the world. We did not feel that we were getting anything less than the rest of the world. Whether you were at UI, you were at Nsukka, wherever you were, right? So what we owe our children and the next generation is to give them the same opportunity that I and most of us in this room had. Although let me rephrase, yes, most of us in this room, yeah. So what I'm looking forward over the next few days, I'm looking forward to the conversations that we're going to have. And those conversations, we're hoping, I'm expecting, that they will drive how we develop education over the years to come and make it much more accessible, educate our people, and make our people much more productive. And by making them productive, they become more economically empowered over time. So ladies, gentlemen, again, I welcome you to Edu 360 2019 version. Thank you for being here.